This is all about Bitcoin, a show dedicated to all things questions and markets related to Bitcoin, little b for the currency, and Bitcoin, big B for the network. A collective journey to understand, apply, and use this innovation, all Bitcoin, all the time. I'm your host, Christine Lee. Let's have a live look at Bitcoin right now. The CoinDesk Bitcoin price XBX index at $40,829. Bitcoin is up over 2% over the past 24 hours. The most reliable reference prices for institutions since 2014 are now published under the CoinDesk brand, trusted globally as the leader in crypto news, events, and data. Top story of the day, the U.S. Senate Banking Committee holding a hearing on understanding the role of digital assets in illicit finance this morning. And what emerged was a tale of two countries. Senator Cynthia Lummis explains.
Well, a lot of attention has been paid here in Congress to whether the Russians could use digital assets to evade sanctions. There's been very little attention paid to how much the existence of digital assets have benefited the Ukrainians in being able to get badly needed supplies.
Like all technologies, crypto is neutral, but the person who uses it isn't. Lawmakers heard from Ukraine, which has collected about $100 million in crypto donations from around the world, directing it within hours toward humanitarian aid and military assistance as Ukraine faces a barrage of fire from Russia. Michael Chebanian, founder of Kun Exchange and president of the Blockchain Association of Ukraine, saying that while wire transfer donations could take 10 days to set up, crypto takes 10 minutes.
Here, what we're fighting for is speed. The faster we buy the helmets, the faster we buy the bulletproof vests, the faster we buy the first aid kits, the more people I can save in my country. So here, I'm praying just for crypto because it's so fast.
By contrast, crypto could also be used for illicit activity by bad actors, for instance, as a preferred payment by ransomware attackers or as a means of sanctions evasion. But Senator Mark Warner took issue with Chainalysis data indicating that only 0.15% of all crypto activity in 2021 was related to illicit transactions. And this is the exact moment Senator Elizabeth Warren learned from Chainalysis that criminals can use Bitcoin, but they can't necessarily hide.
How about depositing tokens in wallets that don't require identifying information?
You can always split the money up into wallets that don't require...
And that would help hide the money. And how about using a mixing service?
That doesn't remove the record of where the money actually sits.
But the question I'm asking is, does it make it harder to track the money?
No, so it doesn't make it harder to track the money because
using a mixing service, you're telling me, doesn't make it harder to launder money?
The daily liquidity value of mixing services globally is about $30 million.
So you might have to do this day by day?
And we have done extensive work in tracking large sums of money through mixers that have led to the arrests of people and the disruption of their activity.
You know, I'm actually a little surprised by your answers.
All right, joining us now is that brave man to discuss, Jonathan Levin, co-founder and chief strategy officer of blockchain analytics firm Chainalysis. Welcome, Jonathan. Thanks for joining us. So congratulations on that very impressive appearance. I have a lot of respect for Senator Elizabeth Warren, but that was a difficult exchange.
Thanks so much for having me on the show. I thought that the hearing in general was incredibly constructive and really positive for the industry. And so, the goal for us to appear in these hearings is really to spread the facts about what we're seeing on the blockchain and what is the art of the possible. Right.
After that exchange, Senator Warren used that as an opportunity to introduce her Digital Assets Sanctions Compliance Enhancement Act, which authorizes the president to sanction foreign crypto firms that are doing business with sanctioned Russian entities and authorize the Treasury Secretary to act. Is there on-chain data showing that crypto is being used to evade sanctions?
So we are tracking this incredibly closely and have information about sort of the extent of Russian infrastructure that's been used for cybercrime activity and ransomware, and some of the concerns that the committee members have. When it comes to thinking about cryptocurrency and systematic sanctions evasion, we haven't yet seen evidence that this is a primary means by any stretch for the Russians to evade these sanctions.
And do you know the wallet addresses belonging to Russian oligarchs to make that determination?
So the OFAC regulator and the enforcement agency has not yet come out with any sanctions guidance that relate to oligarchs and their specific cryptocurrency wallets. And so, when that does happen, that gets immediately updated inside Chainalysis systems, and people actually now are able to screen against that for free to understand whether they're interacting with those Russian oligarchs.
Mm-hmm. And based on your discussion with lawmakers, do you think that they understand that you can track Bitcoin that has been put through mixers and passed through wallets? Or that's a pretty new innovation, and it makes crypto quite transparent, perhaps more transparent than dollars.
Yeah, I think the overwhelming majority of the committee actually do understand a number of things, from today's hearing. Number one is that, first and foremost, crypto is here to stay, and it's broader than just the financial innovation that we've seen so far, and it can impact lots of different industries. I think number two is that they, all demonstrated an understanding that there is inherent traceability when it comes to public ledgers, and that with the right tools and the right resourcing, the government can actually, tackle these types of crime. And so, I think that was, very clear from all of the statements from members on both sides of the aisle.
Okay. We did hear from Senator Mark Warner of Virginia during the hearing. He doesn't believe that illicit transactions only accounted for 0.15% of all crypto activity in 2021, that a lot of ransomware attacks were underreported. Is that the case? Maybe walk through Chainalysis' methodology of arriving at that figure.
Yeah, so our 0.15% of all transactions is a figure that we do stand by. That being said, we are continuing to update our information, from the time that our reports are published to today. So, when you look at, for example, ransomware payments in particular, in our annual report, we published that there were roughly $600 million of ransomware revenue generated last year. That number, we estimate, has actually gone up to 690 based on new information that we're constantly collecting. And so, I would say that it's something that we constantly improve and update. But in terms of the order of magnitude that Mark Warner was talking about, we feel pretty confident that we understand sort of the right order of magnitude here, but we are constantly updating our numbers and intelligence.
Okay. I also wanted to play a clip from Senator Bill Hagerty, a Republican from Tennessee. Let's have a listen.
The mischaracterization that crypto is the Wild West of illicit finance, I'd hate to see that be used in a way to open the door to drop a morass of regulation on an industry that poses so much potential for America.
By contrast, it seemed that Senator Warren was a bit more prosecutorial. So when taking a temperature of the room, did you find the mood more aggressive or more crypto-friendly? And you had mentioned the word constructive.
Yeah, I think the main thing here was that everyone sort of was weighing up the balances between the security and public safety concerns and national security concerns that there obviously are at this present time, with the future of finance and the ability for the United States to have what could be the largest economic engine of the next 2 decades. So there was that balance, and I think that the constructive approach and a lot of the narrative also from between Republicans and Democrats was on creating a degree of regulatory clarity where actors, industry organizations, people in the United States know exactly where they stand when they are building businesses and creating products in this space.
Any follow-ups with Senator Warren after this hearing?
We have been engaging with Senator Warren's staff, and we'll continue to happily provide briefings and follow-up information, and are looking forward actually also to any questions that come in the written form over the next week.
Are you able to discuss any work that Chainalysis is doing with the U.S. government in sorting through these issues?
So we do have contracts with a number of agencies here in the United States that are, pursuing, assets of, sanctioned individuals, as well as, in our everyday attempt to help disrupt, the cybercrime operations and abuse of cryptocurrencies. And that work is only accelerating at this time and hasn't slowed down at all.
All right, Jonathan, thank you so much. Great job today. You're an excellent advocate for the crypto industry. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
That was Chainalysis co-founder and chief strategy officer, Jonathan Levin. Coming up, BTC price analysis with digital asset manager, Arca.
The chart of the day is brought to you by Crypto.com, the world's fastest growing crypto app.
Bitcoin holding above the $40,000 level Thursday amid a broader uptick in global equities as the Bank of England hiked rates 0.75% and following the U.S. Federal Reserve increasing rates by 0.25% yesterday as expected. Fed Chair Jerome Powell signaling the U.S. economy was very strong and could handle monetary tightening, causing that jump in equities. BTC facing strong overhead resistance at the $40,000 level nevertheless, which could stall the recent upswing in price. FX Pro telling CoinDesk there has been a solid support line on declines under $38,000, and this recent bullish strength further reflects long-term buyer interest that has migrated from $30,000 to $38,000 due to inflation and geopolitical tensions. The Relative Strength Index, or RSI, here the bottom on the 4-hour chart is approaching overbought levels, similar to what occurred earlier this month, which preceded brief pullbacks in price. On the weekly chart, however, the RSI is rising from oversold levels, decreasing the likelihood of a significant price sell-off. Right, joining us now to discuss BTC prices, Katie Talati, head of research at crypto asset manager Arca. Hello there, Katie. Always a pleasure to have you join us. So the U.S. Central Bank, the Bank of England, they're raising rates. The U.S. Federal Reserve indicated that there could be 6 more rate hikes this year. If central banks are getting more hawkish, why is Bitcoin going up when it's considered a hedge against inflation?
I think it's not just a hedge against inflation these days, but Bitcoin is, more broadly a risk asset. And I think if you really look at all the different pieces of news and information that's coming out, there's actually a lot of other bullish reasons for Bitcoin to go up other than the inflation hedge narrative. Most recently we've had, the Luna Foundation Guard, LFG, has, announced that they are buying Bitcoin with their latest $1 billion raise. You have El Salvador saying that they are going to be mining Bitcoin with, geothermal energy and issuing bonds. You have Ukraine legalizing crypto in the face of, their geopolitical turmoil. And then even further, looking further than Bitcoin, you have a lot of really positive signals coming for Ethereum, with Consensus saying that they're going to use the proceeds from their latest raise to buy Ethereum. The Ethereum merge is supposedly coming very soon. So those are kind of the things that we're looking at, not just, the kind of inflation narrative that, really impacts the entire market outside of digital assets.
Yeah, and also yesterday we learned that Ukraine is signed into law legalizing cryptocurrencies with a virtual assets bill. Taking a look at geopolitical tensions, though, the war in Ukraine, the pandemic, supply chain problems, how will that impact the health of the global economy and the crypto markets ultimately?
I think that's an interesting question. At the end of the day, Bitcoin hasn't unfortunately been around long enough for us to kind of see it be stress test in this way. I think that, kind of something we were talking about in the earlier segment about how Ukraine, there's questions about whether, Russia might be using Bitcoin and other digital assets to evade sanctions. Is, definitely a concern. But on the flip side, you have places like Ukraine using it to, buy, to purchase, any supplies or things that they need via donations. So I think it's kind of that double-edged sword, right? In terms of, in this case, Bitcoin can really help keep the economy going or keep nations that are facing this type of turmoil alive. But it can also help, nations such as Russia that are trying to evade sanctions and, still kind of participate in the global economy, not just within their own.
Yeah, in either case, what the point is that Bitcoin is being used by everyone. It's a technology. It's neutral. Mm-hmm. Taking a look at Bitcoin for the short term, what's your outlook?
Well, I'll be honest, I don't give price targets, but I will say that, like I said earlier, we're definitely bullish on, the future of Bitcoin, and more so, I would say the future of digital assets. We've been looking at some data internally in terms of the amount of stablecoins that have been on exchanges. That's been increasing for the last 2 months, which is, for us, a clear sign that stablecoins on exchanges potentially equals purchasing power sitting on the sidelines. We do believe that a lot of this is going into Bitcoin, but even from our conversations with institutional investors, a lot of them aren't that interested in Bitcoin necessarily. They're actually looking at other digital assets and really interested in allocating to the space broadly and not just to Bitcoin.
Interesting. So what's your strategy navigating this uncertain market?
I mean, at least for us, we are a fundamental, long-term investors. At least my team and I, we're really, looking at, what, investments are going to outperform in 6 to 12 months. And we are looking at projects that, are performing really well right now. And there is potentially a mismatch in, their price and their valuation. And that's kind of how we look at the long-term outlook for the space.
All right, Katie, thanks so much. Appreciate your time.
Of course. Thanks for having me, Christine.
That was Arca Head of Research, Katie Talati. And that's it for All About Bitcoin. I'm your host, Christine Lee. We'll do it all over again tomorrow at 3 o'clock in New York. Also join us tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. for First Mover. You're watching CoinDesk TV.